Joined now by the lawyer Jeanette Miller and Steve Berry, a motoring journalist, also with us. Jeanette, can I start with you first? Just be clear for us exactly what changes here. Is it because careless driving is an offence?
Yes.
Currently, what changes? Is it the nature of the on-the-spot fine? Is that what's changing?
Absolutely, yes. At the moment, if you are prosecuted for careless driving, the matter has to go to court and a court will decide on the penalty, which could be between 3 and 9 penalty points, and the fine, which can be a lot more than the fixed penalty. The rules are to implement the ability for the police to actually issue on-the-spot penalties and fines. And personally, I think that's not so great an idea.
What's the problem?
Well, at the moment, if you issued a fixed penalty for speeding, you're either speeding or you're not. Yes, you can argue against it, but it's a bit more black and white. You're on the phone, then you're either on the phone or you're not. You have no insurance, you either do or you don't. For careless driving, there's a subjective test involved. And the test for careless driving is that your driving fell below the standard of a competent driver. And the decision there as to whether somebody's driving has fallen below that standard is really up to the courts. And this is taking that away from the courts and giving that power to the police. Now, I would imagine that the police, you know, they're all necessary, but there are a minority of rogue officers who may well abuse that power and authority. And I think it's very hard to argue against that if you've just got an officer standing at the side of the road saying, there you go, fixed penalty. If you want to fight it, go to court. And it's being made much harder to fight against these prosecutions as well. So easier to prosecute, harder to fight against it. I just think it's a bad idea.
OK, so that's an interesting point of view. What about Steve? Do you think it's a good idea people should be given a fixed penalty?
Was that a lawyer speaking that I just heard?
It was.
I thought it might have been. I think it's a good idea. I think that the system as it's... And it's, by the way, it's great for once to be talking about something to do with motoring that isn't just about speeding. There's an emphasis on careless driving, which I think, for the majority of road users, is a greater threat to them. And if people thought that there was a chance of being instantly stopped and fined on the spot, I'm convinced that after a while, and once people were hearing stories about other people that have been stopped, they know people at work, people in their family, and stopped and fined on the spot, I think it would be a deterrent.
What about safety? Would it make it safer, do you think, as well?
I'm not sure. I hope it would be a deterrent, and I do think it would take a while until it would start to happen and people would start to know people, or it had actually happened to them. I don't think it'd be a deterrent until that happened. It's getting away, thank goodness, from the idea that traffic should be policed automatically by camera. A camera can certainly tell if you're speeding. It can certainly tell if you ran a red light. But it can't tell if you're driving down a straight bit of road, weaving all over the place, crossing onto the other carriageway, unless there's an actual camera there. Let's put the policing of driving back in the hands of the police, where it should be.
Do you know, your notion, is it a bit of a red herring, that the idea that there's sort of police officers out there who will vindictively just go round, you know, creating problems where there are none and accusing people of doing things they haven't? Instinctively, when you drive, and we've all done something which is probably careless, you know it, don't you? When you do know yourself, you might be in denial, but someone else can see it very clearly, a police officer.
Well, not necessarily. The test for careless driving I've just mentioned, it's open to interpretation. So I would imagine Mr. Berry's never been wrongly prosecuted, but if you are, it's a real problem to have to clear your name. And careless driving could be a very minor breach of the highway code. So is it fair to allow the police to make that judgment call? I personally think, just from the experiences I've had of having to fight for somebody who has been wrongly prosecuted, I think it needs to still be a decision for the courts and not the police. But I do get his point about putting policing of the roads back in the hands of the police, and I think in the main that's a good idea, but not for an offence that's so open to interpretation.
Good to talk to you both. Steve Berry, thank you very much, and Jeanette Miller, thank you. Thanks both.
Thank you.